Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's broadcast of verses and paragraphs and everything in between. Today is the 14th of May 2018. It's nice, bright, and sunny outside. You know something interesting? The weather app said 26 degrees, rain in Lagos. Meanwhile, the sun is shining so brightly out here. I told myself I'm not going to be caught like I was caught last week. Last week it said it was saying cloudy, and when I stepped outside, the sun could actually fry egg, and I decided to go to the supermarket. When I was there, I heard one very interesting clap. Oh no, not hand clap anyway, nature's clap, and it was actually a clap of thunder, and it was a thunderstorm. And guess what? My weather app told me it was cloudy, but because I saw it was sunny outside there. So you see, there's both an implied and a literal meaning of what we see, what we hear. So how are you today? I'm sure you had a wonderful weekend, enjoying yourselves and also trying to think, what the heck is she talking about? Somebody told me that he doesn't want to compete with that honorable member who everyone in the country knows loves flamboyant words. I say, why not? And Dr. Raffle James is watching. Thank you so much for joining our live broadcast all the way from Idimu, Ejigo. And my sister Eloho FMY is watching all the way from Edinburgh. Hi Eloho, thank you for joining our live broadcast. My sister Eloho is selling. She has an online radio, and she has a program which she does at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's called Arise with Eloho, and Arise with Eloho turned one last week, but she's going to have a big celebration on the 22nd, I think, and they are doing some charity work. So kudos to Eloho. And my big brother Professor Alex Ifamata is watching from Asaba. Thank you everyone for joining our live broadcast today. Now, have you ever, it is very interesting. I mean, it's no secret. By now, everybody knows that English, not only is English weird, it can be confusing at times. You say one thing and it means another one. And you know what I find very interesting about this English language, that every day we are speaking, we are talking, and we don't know that some of the things we say, some of the things, words we use, expressions we use actually have terminologies. And many of us are saying, no, I don't want me no supper. I am not going nowhere. I don't want no bread in my breakfast today. Do you know that when you use expressions like that, they are actually called double negatives? I didn't know about that, because I know at times they even use them in songs, in lyrics, using double negatives. But the one that I find, thank you so much, Dr. Raffle James, my brother from another mother. I have an announcement to make, but let's go on with today's program. Do you know that what I find very confusing and weird about these double negatives is that when you use double negatives in a sentence, according to the Englishman, it is said that double negatives cancel themselves out, and what you end up with is a positive statement. I never knew that. Okay, let me give you the definition of a double negative. A double negative is when two negative words or constructions are used within a single clause. I'll give you one example now. The pilot can't find no place to land. We've used can't and no. So those are two negatives. Now you would think that it means that the pilot cannot find a place to land, but according to the English rules, it means that those two negatives cancel themselves out and they become a positive. I find that a little bit hard and weird to understand, and that is the paradox of the English language. So today we're talking about the paradox of double negatives. Now, double negatives was first recorded in 1820 to 30 and was standard in English throughout the time of Shakespeare. So I wouldn't be surprised if in Shakespeare's plays and sonnets and what have you, you find lots of double negatives. Now, According to the Englishman again, when you use double negatives, they are grammatically incorrect and should not be used in formal writing. You can only use them in speaking. Now today, sentences with double negatives are not grammatically correct, and they are confusing. That's because double negatives, like I said, cancel each other out and make a positive. So when you use a double negative, it ends up being the exact opposite of what you mean. All right, let me look for one of those ones. Let me look for one of the examples that I saw earlier on that actually made me very, very, very surprised. It says, I don't want nothing. I don't want nothing. The implied means that I don't want anything, but because you have don't and want, you don't want nothing, it literally means I want something. So when we're using double negatives, as when we're speaking amongst ourselves as Nigerians, it's okay, but when you're speaking with a native speaker of English, you had better be careful when you use double negatives. If you say, for instance, I don't want me no tea, they might interpret it to mean that you actually want some tea, because the implied means that you don't want, but the literal meaning, because two negatives cancel themselves out and become a positive, it actually means that you really, really want that tea. I find it very, 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 very confusing. Now, when expressing a thought, it's best to avoid double negatives. But it's best to avoid double negatives when you're speaking with a native speaker of the language, which means when you are speaking with a native-born Englishman or Englishwoman. Because at times people think that it is hip to use double negatives. But when you're speaking with a native speaker, be careful to use double negatives, because they might think that what you are saying, that they will interpret the literal meaning of what you are saying. All right. Now let me give you some. I don't got no time means I don't have time. I can't find my wallet nowhere. That is, I can't find my wallet anywhere. Now this one way to one is to change the negative pronoun. Now what are Judith Orogun alias Robo? Judith Orogun is watching all the way from and she's going to tell me good morning. So good morning, I'll tell her first. Good morning, Judith. So you in Canada, from us here in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria. Today we're talking about double negatives and the fact that when you use double negatives in a sentence, it is said that double negatives cancel themselves out and they become a positive. And that's English language for you. Now, talking about negative pronouns, and negative pronouns refer to a good morning, Judy, thank you so much, and good afternoon to you from us here in Nigeria. Negative pronouns refer to a negative noun phrase, and the ones that we have in English: no one, neither, nobody, none, nothing, no. Now, negative pronouns indicate the non-existence of people or things. When you're using negative pronouns, you see this Lagos. I didn't want to sit outside because the sun is so bright, so I'm still indoors with a fan, and yet I am sweating like there's no tomorrow. If Joe Gibbs comes on, he's going to ask me how I'm going to address my sweating galore, according to him, because it's my sweating galore. Today we are talking double negatives. Double negatives, where the standard in English time of Shakespeare, but we're not in the time of Shakespeare. Like I was saying earlier on, if the Englishman says that when you use double negatives, two negatives in one sentence, it cancels it out and it becomes positive. Very careful to use double negatives when you are speaking with a native speaker of English. All right, I'll give you some examples. I have some examples that I wrote down here of double negatives in clause. I already read one. The pilot can't find no place to land. Now when you hear that one, what occurs to you is that the pilot is looking for where to land and he can't find a place to land. There aren't no more presence left to open. So we have two double negatives here with a verb. There are not no presence left to open. That won't do you no good. So you have won't and no, which are negative nouns, negative pronouns, and negative. Okay, we'll come to negative adverbs. I ain't got no time for supper. The implied meaning is that you really don't want supper, but the literal meaning to a native speaker of English is that you actually have time to have your supper. Nobody with any sense is going. Nobody already is a negative pronoun. With any sense is going. I can't find my keys nowhere. I can't find my keys nowhere. She never goes with nobody. Most of us will like using double negatives, but according to the Englishman, once you use double negatives, they cancel themselves out, and what you are saying, even though you are meaning it in a negative way, becomes positive. Sounds confusing, right? We'll be talking about it a bit tomorrow also. John says he has not seen neither Alice or Susan all day. Now, we're talking about double negatives today. Typically, a double negative is formed by using not not with a verb, and also using a negative pronoun or adverb. Remember, I've already given you examples of negative pronouns. Negative pronouns, you have negative pronouns: no one, neither, nobody, none, nothing, and no. And negative adverbs, we have hardly, barely, scarcely. Even though they don't sound negative, when they are used in this context with a negative pronoun, they become negative. So, like I said right now, typically a double negative, I beg your pardon, is formed by using not, the word not, with a verb, and also using a negative pronoun or adverb. I just veered off to tell you what negative pronouns or negative adverbs are. Sometimes the speaker wants to produce a negative statement, but the effect is to produce a positive statement because the two negatives cancel each other. It is considered incorrect to use a double negative. However, there are some instances when a double negative may be appropriate. Okay, I'd like to... Zash Ability is watching. I don't know where you're watching from, but thank you for joining our live broadcast. Olanrewaji Olaleya is watching from Glasgow. Thank you so much, my sisters. CS, wink wink, for joining our live broadcast. And my cousin Betty Samuels. This is your Samuels where you are, I don't know, but thank you so much for joining our live broadcast. Today we're talking about double negatives. And for those of you who are living in the white man's land, the white man says when you use double negatives in a statement, they cancel each other out and become positive. So as you are living there in England, London, Glasgow, wherever, don't use double negatives with the white man, because they will now believe that you're saying something positive. Like I said, sometimes you want to produce a negative statement, but the effect is to produce a positive one, because when you use two negatives in one sentence, they each cancel themselves out. That's good, Zash Ability. I'm glad you are learning more. I'm also learning too, because when you teach, you have to study, and by studying, you're also learning as you pass out information. Now, I read some examples of double negatives. She never goes with nobody. Never and nobody. That won't do you no good. Won't and no. So in effect, you're telling the person it won't do you any good, but because you have double negatives in that sentence, they cancel each other out and they become positive. So that won't do you no good. The literal meaning means that it will do you good. So be very careful the way you use, but you can only use it in speaking. It is not right to use it in writing, because if you use it in writing, no, it doesn't work out there. Anyway, there are some instances when a double negative may be appropriate. Now listen to this. I don't want nothing. Don't and nothing. If you don't want nothing, you must want something. Does that make sense? If you don't want nothing, you must want something. All right, then. She didn't see nothing. If she didn't see nothing, she must have seen something. It's confusing, right? He is not This might be a time when a double negative is needed. The person doesn't want to say he's attractive, but also doesn't want to say that he's not attractive. So he says he is not unattractive. Remember, un is a prefix which indicates a negative feeling. So he is not unattractive. You don't want to say he is attractive, and at the same time you don't want to say he's not attractive. You don't want to be insulted. So you say he's not unattractive. So that's a double, where a double negative is appropriate. In the other times when you say I don't want nothing, if you don't want nothing, you must want something. I did not know neither the date nor the month. Well, it implies that if you did not know either of them, then you must know both of them. It's very, very confusing when you have double negatives in a sentence and the white man says they cancel themselves out. I am not uncaring. This might be a time when a double negative is needed. The speaker doesn't want to say that he cares, but also doesn't want to say that he doesn't care. So I am not uncaring. So in this case, it cannot cancel itself out. It's just an easy way of not saying he doesn't care or that he cares. Now it's easy to fall into a double negative trap, and here's how to recognize and sidestep them. I mentioned negative nouns earlier on. So what are negative nouns? If you use a negative noun and a negative verb, you have a double negative. Negative nouns are words such as nowhere, nothing, nobody, and no one. These are negative nouns. I'm repeating them. Negative nouns are words such as nowhere, nothing, nobody, and no one. And if you use a negative noun and a negative verb, you have a double negative. Here are examples of ways to get rid of negative nouns. I don't want nothing. You use don't, want the verb, and nothing. I don't want nothing. Now, you could change it to I don't want anything. So that the no in nothing, you change it to any, and so it becomes anything. So instead of saying I don't want nothing, you can change it to I don't want anything. I don't want nothing literally means I want something. If we go by the rule which says that two negatives cancel themselves out and become a positive, if you say I don't want nothing, you're actually saying that you want something. So if you're speaking with a native speaker of English, not like me that studied English language in the university, a native speaker, a born and bred native speaker of English, and you actually want something, don't tell the person I don't want nothing. I don't want no bread to eat. The person will just assume that you actually want something, because that is the literal translation, because two negatives cancel themselves out and become a positive. Now here's another one. Irregardless. That must be a Nigerian expression. Judith is asking me what of irregardless. I think I must have heard. Irregardless means regardless of, not regarding. Irregardless, not regarding it. Irregardless of the sun shining, she went out even though she knew she had a splitting headache. Not minding. Irregardless. I think yes, I've heard that one. Now she is not going nowhere can change to she is not going anywhere. So you see, the negative noun nowhere, we can change the no to any, and then we now get she's not going anywhere, because according to the grammatical rules of double negatives, she's not going nowhere literally means she's going somewhere. So if you're talking about somebody and the lady has said it, I said she's not going nowhere. To get out or sidestep out of that trap of a double negative, which you are intending to be negative, but because you've used two negatives, it turns out positive. You can say, instead of saying she's not going nowhere, you can say she's not going anywhere, because the implied meaning is that she is actually going somewhere. He never saw no one can change to he never saw anyone. He never said He saw no one literally means he actually saw someone. Like I said, English is confusing, but we have to speak it because it's our lingua franca. But then if you are speaking it around a native speaker of English, we have to be very careful that we recognize the nuances and expressions. And at times, some of them will just look at you and they won't say anything. They just allow you to keep on speaking. So, but it's good to know these things so that when you are speaking with a native speaker of English, you don't make those mistakes. Now, let's talk about negative modifiers. A modifier, rather, is a word that changes, clarifies, qualifies, or limits another word. A double negative is formed by adding a negative to the verb and a negative modifier to the noun. For example, we don't have no extra chairs. That's like, we don't have extra chairs. Wouldn't that be okay? Because here, no is a negative modifier and isn't needed. You don't need it. We don't have extra chairs. Isn't that okay? But some people don't have no. I think maybe if it's a Nigerian saying, a Nigerian saying, because for emphasis, we don't have no extra chairs. It is a negative. No is a negative modifier and it is not needed at all. Instead, you could just say we don't have any extra chairs. Okay, all right. Judith now says, irregardless bothers her, which I think is a common, Nigerians use it, and it's basically those who basically is a crutch word, but I didn't use it too much. And it's basically those educated ones who want to prove their education. And Judith says that it bothers her because regardless is already in spite of. And she would like me to research irregardless. I will too, and then I'll research irregardless, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow. So we're still talking about negative modifiers and the fact that a modifier changes, clarifies, or limits another word. And a double negative is formed by adding a negative to the verb and a negative modifier to the noun. I gave an example already. We don't have no extra chairs. No, there is a negative modifier and it is not needed. Instead, you could just say we don't have any extra chairs. Any knocks out the no, and then it makes more sense. So the modifier is now any and it is not negative. So we don't have no extra chairs. There's no need for the no. Just say we don't have any extra chairs. I didn't want to live nowhere else. Now, if you're going to change that one and take away the negative modifier, what would you get? I didn't want to live anywhere else, because we have taken away the no and replaced it with any, which is a modifier, but it is not a negative modifier. Now let's talk about negative adverbs. Negative adverbs are sneaky negative modifiers because they are not no words, like nowhere, nobody, no one, nothing. So they are sneaky negative modifiers. And negative adverbs are words like I mentioned some earlier on: barely, seldom, hardly, rarely, and scarcely. Even though they don't have no before them, they still have a negative connotation. She seldom listens to the radio. Means that she really doesn't. There's a negative code that she doesn't do it. Or I hardly have time for breakfast. I never have time. It connotes it shows a negative connotation. He can't hardly wait for the game to begin. The implied meaning is that he can hardly wait for the game to begin. But the literal meaning is he can wait for the game. Because if you have can't and hardly, those are two negatives. Hardly, remember, is a negative adverb and can't is a negative pronoun. He can't hardly wait for the game to begin. The implied meaning is that he cannot wait for the game to begin. But the literal meaning is that he can, because the two negatives have cancelled themselves out and have become positive. So when you are speaking, you watch it and then you may wish to do your own research on double negatives. But it's interesting to know that when we speak every day, it's amazing. I didn't even know all these things, and I'm speaking and I'm supposed to have 2 degrees in English language. But it's good because of this one I study and I get to know better. So double negatives are when you use two negative phrases in a single clause, and according to the grammatical rules, they cancel themselves out and they become a positive comment. Now, double negatives are used in colloquial language, that is informal language, when you are speaking in casual situations, and should always steer clear of any formal writing. You cannot use double negatives in formal writing, it is wrong. There are grammatical rules. I know in Nigeria we break a lot of the grammatical rules by our tenses, our sentences, thematic expressions and everything, but never ever use double negatives in formal writing. They're okay when you're speaking. During the Shakespearean era, they use double negatives, but after the Shakespearean era, of course, they no longer use double negatives. Now let's have this example. Aisha doesn't want no help from you. Okay, let me use the words of the names of the people watching. Elohor doesn't want no help from you. Doesn't and no create a double negative. The implied meaning is that Elohor doesn't want any help. The literal means that Elohor actually wants help from you. When it is constructed with a double negation, there is no logical explanation for the sentence, making it invalid. So I have to be very careful about that one. Alright, here's another one again. Bumi never said she saw nothing. Judith never said she saw nothing. Never and nothing create a double negative. The implied meaning is that Bumi never saw anything, but the literal means that she actually saw something. So this is rather confusing, rather weird, and we use these expressions in our daily or day-to-day talking, day-to-day speaking, but please never ever use them in formal writing. Yes, it is a serious negative. Elohor doesn't want no help from you. If Elohor says, I don't want no help from you I don't want no help from you, I don't want no donations from you for my this, it actually means that she really wants. That is the literal meaning, is that she actually wants it. So Elohor, please don't use any double negatives. I'm learning to myself not to use double negatives, but then okay, in singing, when you are singing in songs, I'm trying to remember the songs, the examples they gave. Ain't nobody forgotten the other word that goes after it, but anyway. Hello, I know you need help. I'm just using your name as an example. But in songs, you can get away with using double negatives. In singing, in lyrics, you can get away with that one. But in speaking, be very careful who you speak to, and do not use double negatives in writing. Our word of today is a little bit long, but very interesting. Our word of today is Elohor, Ola. Wait for this. Ola, your name is even in this sentence. This is our word for the day, Ola. Our word for today is Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza, and it is a noun. Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza. Ola, I told you that your name is in our word of the day. I'll tell you what it means, but first of all, let me hold it up and then you see Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza. Okay, here we go. Lollapalooza. Can you see that? Lollapalooza. Now, this very interesting word. What is the meaning of Lollapalooza? Ola's name is inside our word for the day. Lollapalooza. Ola, is that not interesting? Lollapalooza. So what is the meaning of the fan is blowing my paper. Instead of the fan to blow me to keep dry, it's blowing my paper. Alright, our word of the day is Lollapalooza, and it means an extraordinary or unusual thing, person, or event. A Lollapalooza is an extraordinary or unusual thing, an extraordinary person, or an extraordinary event. So what are the Lollapaloozas that you know? Extraordinary people, extraordinary events, or extraordinary thing. Like some of these pictures they put on Facebook of there's some pictures I have seen of some birds. They're so colorful. unbelievably colorful. I think those are Lollapaloozas, those birds which really? Okay, okay, it's an American word. Let me tell you, does not sound like an English word, but it's a word of today. The origin of Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza is an American word of unknown but fanciful origin used by comic writers and humorists such as somebody Perelman, who lived in 1904, and P.C. Woodhouse, 1881 to 1975. Lollapalooza entered English in the early 20th century. So, Judith, it's now an English word. It has an American origin, but it is an English word, Lollapalooza. So, anything that is unusual, a person that's unusual, an event that's unusual, either an exceptional example or instance is a Lollapalooza. Like I was saying, I don't know if you noticed on Facebook, some very colorful birds, strange and colorful looking birds. I think those are Lollapaloozas. Or you see some strange things that people put on Facebook. Those are Lollapaloozas. Something that is extraordinary or unusual. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Judith. Judith says thanks. Now, our quotable quote for today is, we love libraries. The quote is, "A library is not a luxury, but one of the necessities of life." A library is not a luxury, right? I beg your pardon, but one of the necessities of life. So we all need libraries, both at home, at school, at work. We need libraries. And this was said by Henry Ward Beecher. He was an American Congregationalist clergyman, a social reformer and speaker known for his support of the abolition of slavery and his emphasis on God's love. So our quotable quote for today on We Love Libraries is, "A library is not a luxury, but one of the necessities of life." Which brings me to tomorrow. Remember I said that we are looking for books to donate to a special school here in Surrey. It's a government junior and secondary school. It has hearing and hearing impaired children. It also has they have children with Down syndrome, autism, but their library does not have books, and it's painful because I love reading and I love to encourage people who are reading. The English shelf and the literature shelf is bare, but my friend Dr. Raphael James has one of the biggest private libraries in Lagos in terms of resources, not space. He has lots of books. He has over 30,000 books in his library. The library is free. It's a public library, it's free. And he's donating books towards our cause, and I'm going to be there tomorrow to collect the books. And while I'm collecting the books, I'm going to broadcast verses and paragraphs live from there. So I'd like everyone to join in on our broadcast tomorrow. I'm already on advertising the program on Facebook. So verses and paragraphs, by God's grace, tomorrow will broadcast live from the creamed library. I can't remember this is Center for Research. Dr. Raphael James, please forgive me, I do not know the meaning of creamed library off heart. But there's a lot of research work going on there. It's beyond the free library. They also have a free workshop for women where they do catering. They learn how to sew. They learn how to play music. I think recently now they have begun video editing now. So all you need to just come with your things, and then so tomorrow, while I don't want to give it away. So, but when we get there tomorrow, when I'm going to collect the books, you'll see. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Judith said she has made some contacts, and I'll send. Okay. All right. I'll do that. Well, like I said, Judith, we are collecting some books tomorrow, the 15th of May, from Creamed Library, which is one of the biggest, or it is the biggest private library, which is free to the public. I remember the other day I needed to do some work around here. I looked for a library and I was made to pay 1,000 naira for less than 4 hours. But my friend has this free library in Ejigbo, which, I mean, if I was going to travel and come back, it would have been hectic. But we are going there tomorrow by God's grace, and he's donating books towards our initiative. Thank you so much for everyone who has shown interest. Judith Orogun in Canada has shown interest, and she says she has made some contacts and people will be calling me. Thank you so much for your help. So please, tomorrow, be sure to join our live broadcast, spread the news around, tell people, let's watch and see how the Cream Library is giving away books to donate to the government special school here in Surulere. I think the street is Nitolo or somewhere. But I went there, I saw the principal, and she has this burning desire, this burning passion to encourage the book reading culture. We all need to do, because readers are leaders. While looking at them today, they are leaders tomorrow. If they do not read, they don't know anything. I remember when Winnie Mandela died, and I was talking, there's a young boy who is so proficient in what he's doing. He produces film, and he didn't know who or what Winnie Mandela was. I said, yes, I know Mandela, but I don't know Winnie Mandela. I mean, so if he was reading, he would have known of. I mean, that doesn't matter. No matter how young you are, this is part of history of the world. We need to encourage our young ones to read. I don't know whether Eloho remembers. I remember years ago, Eloho was just finishing secondary school there. And then the then president of South Africa asked, and she was looking at me as I was speaking. I said, okay, your assignment, start reading newspapers. And I made sure Eloho read newspapers. And today, look at her. She's hosting her own online radio. And that's why we want to encourage reading, because readers are leaders. The young people of today are leaders of tomorrow. We don't want them to be speaking East West, and we don't want them to be wondering who important international figures are. How can a young man who's almost 26 not know who Winnie Mandela is? And he's into the arts. He produces films of great repute. He's worked with well-known actors, and yet he doesn't know who Winnie Mandela is. And it's no excuse. Some people say, well, it's no excuse. If you know who Mandela was, you ought to know his history and what the role that Winnie Mandela played in his life. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Tomorrow is another day. By God's grace, we'll be at Cream Library. It's in Idimu, Ejibo. I don't know, some distance from here, but we'll be there by God's grace. Do join our live broadcast tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, because if you do not watch, I will not be able to come on. So thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Be good. Thank you very much. And then keep the books coming. All right then. Bye-bye.